This practice also, as it becomes more, some people might be able to do this from the start, but you are also to be attending your breathing and praying in time with that breath. But you should begin this practice at least, or at least be praying at the same time that this practice is going on if you can't also attend your breath. But you begin this practice with a Lord's Prayer and a Hail Mary, or a Lord's Prayer and an Orthodox prayer related to the Mother. And while you're going, you could either do the Lord's Prayer or the Jesus Prayer. And so as you start it, the key, attending, your eyes are still, you're in a chair, the chair must have a headrest and must be a seated. Active passive is what we're trying to achieve. So it's seated, not lying down, or you'll fall asleep, because it is a waking up and going to sleep at the same time in a way. What happens throughout this process is things that faculties that have become unconscious are becoming awake, but you're also, like I said, passive at the same time, as we'll find out. But the basic where you're putting your attention, your concentration, it's called concentration without effort, is that you're attending the center of vision and the all of vision at the same time. So they're the two things you're bringing your attention to, and it's a balance between those two things. That's how it's achieved. You could call it the point and all as well. And so I could show a video, but you get an idea of everything that you're looking at, that you can see as vision, you attend, and the point. And I'll give some tips of, some people it might be who don't have experience with concentration or meditation in any way, things you can do to work up to it. And so, yeah, that's what you're doing. But it's important to understand that this attending of the both and this balancing, a good metaphor for it is like a tightrope walker who's not straining but gently moving across the tightrope, and he's balancing, right? Another metaphor that's really important and useful is a symbol, is you're like a flock of birds coming together, really, while you're doing this attention, and you're not flapping your wings, but you're gliding on a thermal, and the thermal's drawing you up towards him. The sun is, right? So you're not grasping and trying to, it's a relaxed state. So you should be seated, and you should be, your body should be in a relaxed state as possible. Anything that comes from him usually comes from in that. It's not like an excitable state. It's moving towards silence in prayer. And so a way also of that. Now, one thing you add to this attending of the center and the all of vision, or the icon that you're looking at and the all of vision, this balancing, is, and pay careful attention to the words I'm using, because it's not a action so much as you allow the passive to rise, and you allow a slight sleepiness to rise. And this helps, and this is this passive active I'm talking about. It's part of the balancing, right? And that's kind of like a third thing that you allow. You're like loosening a grip a little bit, and you're allowing like a sleepy being, a sleepiness to arise and enter. But you can see how that's not an action, because an action is a willing, it's a releasing while you're doing it. And that helps establish this serious play. State that you want. Hanging a little loose is another way of putting it. Or because concentration in people's mind, people think concentration and they think grasp. So no, it's you got to not play into that. It's hard as a Westerner, because Westerners trying to achieve something. It's very will to power. The Westerner is the Western European. So now, later you must add, and you should be praying at the same time as this. You should be able to do that while you're doing the balancing, but you might not. Some people have had trouble with, or one person said, being also attending the belly at the same time as doing this. So what you do is you can learn how to do that on your walk, which we'll go into as the next practice. But those who can or are intermediate in this, at the same time as you're doing those three things, or you also add to your attention your automatic breathing. And with the automatic breathing, in and out, you're not controlling it. Your attention's also there, as it is with the vision of the point and the all and the balancing. It's like a juggling sort of, but like I said, it's like being on the thermal, the balancing of the bird coming up on the thermal. And so in the in and out breath, you are praying the Lord's Prayer in your head. So I'm just going to show what the Orthodox do with the Jesus Prayer with breath. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon me, a sinner. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon me, a sinner. And you see how do that in your head, but you're not controlling how fast your breath is, just with its automatic movement. And you pray in time with that, with the Lord's Prayer or the Jesus Prayer. So that should give you an idea of how that's done while you're doing it and while your attention's there. And if you get distracted, that's fine. You just, during this process, thoughts will come up, temptations actually. And this is part of this practice or way is part of the vow of poverty, but it actually practices all of them in a small way. So it's so important. But these temptations will come up, thoughts will come up. They even still do for me. That's an important part of it. But throughout the practice, you'll notice as silence becomes more, and throughout the time that you're doing it. But we'll go into tips related to it in the next slide. But that silence, the temptations that come up, you just do a gentle, neutral no in the head. Not annoyed, never annoyed, just a no. And then bring your attention back to what we've been talking about and continue. Which we'll see is an important lesson in what's going on. And so perhaps you might want me to draw it. So let me just bring this up. And I'll bring up a video real quick. Whoop. Just open up here. And we should be able to get this working. And so we'll just play the video. Whoop. Let's play the video. Whoop. Play. And this is your vision. And this is something you can also helps as a tip, is to get used to attending the all. When you're walking, the movement helps you notice the all at the same time. So you might want to do that separately on your walk, attending the all, the vision. And so I'll just draw on this. So, it's the center of vision that you're attending, but also at the same time, the all, as you can see here. And because vision is basically a circle, but everything. And don't strain yourself. So that's basically it. I just wanted to show that for people that might. But on one more thing, I was going to speak about that in the next bit, but you've still got the green. You can probably see this green. It may help to, like I said, not attending the point, but as you're walking, just to get used to attending the all of vision, like I said, to be moving at the same time like this. But also it can help to get away from just this, because we're so used to this point concentration on the center. We only attend what we're looking directly at. But there are other things going on. And so it may help to also attend like bits of tree or as they move past while your vision's just just forward. And so and when you're doing the practice, your vision's still. If it moves away from the thing you're doing, just bring it back. Because you're doing this when you're doing the practice in the morning, you're doing this looking at your icon, and if your eyes jet away or something, just bring it back. It's just a gentle attention. Nothing is lost in this practice. Nothing is failed. Everything is some things are going on in the deep unconscious that you're unaware of. Your feet are being washed on the other side. The practice is never wasted. And so it's also helpful, I think, because these things take time to work out, to pray to the Lord to help you. And I pray every day, actually, for people who are now doing it, to figure it out, but also, to start it as well. So that's important that you pray for it. There is a degree to which you will work it out too, and it develops. This gets deeper and deeper and deeper and other things, but this is the important thing that we're talking about now. So pray for help with it if you don't understand, and things will come to you. And where do you think that comes from? That to help you, the Lord and your guardian angel. So yeah, I think that's most of the points for this. Oh, there's another thing that I do, which is a thing I do more recently, is at the end of a practice, because really you're experiencing grace every morning, because your breath, grace ends up controlling your breath or moving with your breath. So he does. So, but that's more in as it moves into an advanced element. But prostration, which means kneeling down on the ground, putting your head on the ground. The Orthodox do this a lot. But it's a good practice in humility. You will gain a lot. Humility just happens naturally from this when you encounter the beings of the hierarchies and the Lord and Mary. You can't help but be made humble by it. But yeah, so you must add these two things together when they those two things. But change over time, grace. Yep. That's another thing. How it changes over time is you'll start with your eyes open, but eventually you will notice, and this is part of grace, and I didn't notice at the time. I was trying to keep my eyes open, but not of your will. Your eyes will not with your volition. Your eyes of their own volition will begin to shut. Allow that. That's supposed to happen. So once the eyes do begin to shut, you still continue your attending of the point and all. And if you can't sort of find where that is, use the feeling of the bridge of your nose to see where it is while your eyes are closed. This won't happen straight away, but it's something that will develop. And as your eyes are closing, and again, you're not doing it, it's something that occurs, and you're still praying this whole time. Again, this is not a technique, it's a way, and it's the Lord on the other side of what's going on. You must remember that and always understand that frame, because you will be tempted. You'll be tempted to bring things about. We'll get to that in the next slide, with the trouble the Westerner has with this. But yes, just to finish that idea is that as your eyes are closing, the vision might go a little crossed. Just continue the attending where you are. Don't worry about it. Just allow grace to do what it's doing, and continue. And once the eyes are shut, you continue your attending of the middle and the all and the balancing that entails. And also, like I said, that slight allowance of the sleepiness, I suppose you could call it. You're not going to sleep. You're never going to sleep. It's just the allowance. It's sort of a loosening. Helps bring that about. It helps bring balancing about, and helps bring, again, as I talked about on the video on this previously, this is the transcendent self. It's the allowance, the lowering and lowering of you, the bowing of you is allowance of the passive. It's allowing the unconscious to enter, but also you're conscious at the same time. So you're waking up and going to sleep at the same time. Also, it's worth considering, which might be a part of the next slide, but yeah, I should finish the point of that closing of the eyes. You continue it then when your eyes are closed. That's where most of the practice then happens. And like I've said before, you could start with 5 minutes, but people have begun to see things occur, not see things occur, but have the phenomenology that I've been talking about, and an awakening of the relationship and the breath with doing 30 minutes in the morning. So that is recommended, but you could just start small. You just want to habituate it first. You can start small. If you can't do 30 minutes, do 5. So yeah, it's a prayer rule too. Again, Orthodoxy talks about this. You don't break it unless lives are at stake. Once you establish this is the most important time of your day. And eventually you'll start to experience it not as something you're trying to do and habituate, but as the thing you're most looking forward to, going closer to him. Especially when you start experiencing him and you walk with God, it's the most meaningful part of your day. It's a great blessing. And the rest of the day couldn't function without this. And you see this priests talk about that. They have their holy hour in the morning. It's your prayer. It's prayer, meditation, prayer. Christian meditation. So, yeah, and the experience just becomes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And what eventually awakens, which I was going to talk about later, the senses of mystic touch. I'm not going to go into the phenomenology today. We're going to do that in the next stream. We're just going to talk about the practices today. But we could mention at least what Valentin Tomberg talks about in the first chapter, which is the zone of silence. I'll talk about at the end how to sort of get a sense of where that is, but it's essentially behind the eyes, really, in terms of you feel it in the region behind where you sense where your eyes and your forehead are. That doesn't become available at the start, but it emerges. And I'll tell you a sort of practice to do at the end of the practice that helps locate where that is. And you'll begin to notice the phenomenology related to this. And so that essentially is the practice. But yeah, prostration is something I do at the end because you're experiencing grace daily once you develop it. So yeah. I think I've gone through everything related to the practical element of it. Yep. That's it. And so, some general tips related to this. Like I said, you can, if you're sort of having trouble understanding or attending the all, again, don't be over concerned by, you will think, am I doing this right? There is a degree to which you work this out with your guardian angel. You work this out with the Lord. And insights are sent to you. But it can help, or it helped me early on to, I was walking, to attend the all on its own rather than the center, just the all. And what helps with that, because you're attending all of it that way, and you sort of, like I said, you hang a little loose when you're doing it. It helped me saying, I am this openness being that this is. A bit of Heideggerian terminology there helped. Also, what might help in attending this all is that you could consider the place that you're attending is slightly back from or inward from what your vision is, what your vision sees as the all, or slightly behind the eyes, if that makes sense. Also, people might notice what is called visual snow. It's this very subtle, transparent, like TV static. Now, you notice it when you're looking at a sky, and not everyone has this, but you might notice it when you're looking at a sky or looking at a grey or white wall. When you're attending the all, you're kind of attending that as well. And so later on, as you develop, again, the Lord is the ground of your psyche and the ground of your being. That's so important to recognize. And so this attending of what actually Carl Jung calls active imagination is the unconscious, and it's moving towards him who you are nested in. So when you're attending the center and the all, you're actually attending that being that is static, that visual snow. But not everyone has that. So, but a good percentage of people do. It's a sort of gateway to the spirit, really. But it's another word for what Jung calls active imagination. And so as you're developing, you can, people that are doing, and I would do this, is that you don't have to just leave it to your own time in the morning. You can do this at any time during the day. You carry the secret fire eventually. And so you can do your prayers and your attendings while you're just waiting in line or whatnot. And, your eyes will close and you'll do this. And you get used to it and you become able to do it anywhere. But of course, throughout the day, you're praying anyway. But we'll see that with the next practice. But, okay. That's another point. Don't over-try. There's that Yoda saying, just do, don't try. So when you start the practice, you set an alarm for 30 minutes and you just forget about it. You're not there to achieve anything. You're not there to bring anything about yourself. Remember, it's collaboration. So it's so important to set that frame when you're going in. You're hanging a little loose and you're just doing, you're not trying to bring anything about. Because the Westerner, and the Central European and Eastern European is better at this than the Westerner is. The Westerner is obsessed with ends, the will to power and ends. And the power is related to the technique that he's become. the technical that he's made himself into. And so, it's probably a little bit, sorry, it's just the air conditioning. It's probably a little bit much right on my head there. But, yeah, so he's obsessed with ends. And so you're relearning this technical being that you are to not be obsessed with ends, to just do and be in the moment doing it for that 30 minutes. You're not trying to bring anything about. Also, there's this tendency with the Western European. I'm not talking about West and East. I'm talking about Europe itself and the difference between the Western European, the Central European, and the Eastern European. So there's this attitude of, let's just get on with it. I just want to get to the results. Let's get on with it. So you got to be resistant to that too, to let that go. And you have to be patient. Remember, you're not bringing this about. You've got to train the attitude that you're entering his context. It's a personal relationship, like I said before. But that things will come about when they come about, not with my control. And when I'm ready, they will. When I'm ready. Things happen with your moral development in mind. So these are all sort of tips to help develop the process, but really what they are is preparing you. This is part of preparation, but even your ways are part of a preparation of you and because that's what you're entering. You're entering with initiation, the 3 stages of purification, illumination, union. And so you don't have a relationship yet, so you're purifying your arbitrary self so you can establish a relationship with the transcendent self, your guardian angel. So you have to purify yourself, and this is part of it. This is poverty, part of the poverty oath. And there are other things related to that, like forgiveness, which is one of the practices we'll talk about today. But yeah, so that's another tip. But we've got some other stuff here. Yes, that's another one, is that when you're looking, what are you? The I amness that you are is sort of what you're attending when you're concentrating on the center and the all. You're turning the light that is you around to its source that you don't know. And when you think about what Jesus' name is, before Abraham was, I am. I am that I am. The reason his name is that is because there's no metaphor or symbol for him in the world. That would always be a idol in the way. The only symbol that can be compared to him to help understand him is I am. This experience of I am that you have is the only thing comparable because you are made in his image. So that I am is the only name that really gets close to what he is. And so that's what you got to understand, that's what you're doing when you're doing these attendings, is that you are the ground of your psyche is him, where it touches the spirit. And you're reestablishing contact with him by turning the light around to its source, which is a person, a divine person. And if you don't consider it that way, you won't awaken to these very real beings underneath him, his hierarchies, and himself. We're demechanicalizing because that is a will to power, lusty arbitrariness of a source separate from him that wants to be a separate son. The whole of modernity is an attempt to be a separate son and distance from God. And so you have to understand, and you will eventually you'll see that love is the ground of being. As you deepen and deepen and deepen your contact through this Christian meditation and prayer, you'll establish contact and reconnect the broken, dead parts of your being, which modernity has ripped to pieces, like the mercenaries ripped the clothes of Christ after he crucified. You're reconnecting these things. That's why you're attending the breath and doing these various things, as we'll find out. Linking mind to body and the vital body and the psychological body. You're linking all these things back together, that you are responsible also for. You have to take responsibility. You just have to, even if you're born into something, we're all responsible. because we all have this sin and that has to go. And so this process isn't just this morning practice, but you're sort of practicing everything really while you're doing it. But it also requires a Christian, a Christian life outside of it in terms of forgiveness and a bunch of other practices we'll talk about today that get moving on that. But this is the key one that awakens you to things, that change, that it doesn't transform you, but the collaboration is transformative as miraculous or sacred magic, you could call it, or it becomes sacred magic. At the start, it's your effort, but grace meets effort eventually. And what is that? It's the direct collaboration of the Lord with you, as that becomes a fact of your experience. The mystery of the breath, mystery of the blood, and other mysteries as well. So what else do I have here? Yeah, I talked about preparation, turning the light around to its source. Morning practice. The morning practice develops further and further. This is just the beginning of what you'll experience, and we'll talk about the phenomenology of that next week. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly read this here to make sure I went through everything to do with that practice. And these notes are available in the Discord for members of the fellowship. scottmanion.com/membership. The second part of the stream will be members only. Fellowship only. It's not membership, it's a fellowship. But, okay. That's everything. I think I've talked about everything related to that. The Lord and his angels are washing. Yeah. The Lord and his angels, your feet are being washed while this is going on. And so, yeah, that's everything related to that practice. That's what you begin. That's the first thing. Icon on the wall. Still vision. I think I've explained that. So now let's move on to the second one. Now, okay. So this one, if you can't yet attend the belly, well, you should be doing this anyway. But if you can't yet also bring in the morning practice, bring your attention to the breathing as well. Here's the way to bridge them together. So when you're doing your walk, and you should be walking every day, while you're walking, pray the Jesus prayer, like I mentioned in the earlier practice, how to do it, or the Lord's Prayer. You do that while you're attending the belly. And if you can't yet feel deeper in the belly, you should be able to you at least feel the surface movement of the belly. Attend that, or whatever is available, deeper perhaps as well. The diaphragm, the belly, have your attention there. And in time with the automatic breathing of that, as you're walking, pray the Jesus prayer or the Lord's Prayer in your mind. And like I mentioned earlier, I'll do it again just to show you, as Orthodoxy does it, is that Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon me. But in time with, in your head though, because when it's in your head, you can do it all day. Because what we're trying to establish is a praying unceasingly at the ground, or re-establish contact with a prayer that is unceasing, like St. Paul wanted us to do. That's possible because when you do this all day, eventually it enters the unconscious. So when you're even asleep, that prayer is going on. And it's very important. Like I said, we're reconnecting the different parts that the mercenaries cut to pieces. So that's what you're doing. Again, you don't control its movement. It's just the automatic movement that's there. And whatever change may occur, that it's not your volition that's interfering. Your attention is just on it. And so even throughout the day, in whatever task you're doing, you can drop into that. If you're waiting for a bus, whatever, drop into having your attention on the breath and praying Jesus' prayer, the Lord's Prayer. There's no reason really just to let your mind run. If you just pay attention to your mind, these are just temptations most of the time. You don't work anything out. You actually just deepen your resentments. As you're sitting there thinking, I'm going to work this out, this problem that occurred. You're not working anything out. You're not working anything out. Unless you sit down and write down pros and cons or something like that. But just stewing, it's just temptations coming up and making it worse. So you're actually far better off to just drop into this and help deepen your practices during the day. And the life that becomes awakened for you is infinitely greater than what you now are in modernity. So do this during the day on your prayer walk and establish a prayer unceasing. But also do a prayer to Mary as well. You must also do that at least, once during the day. You have to establish this relationship with the mother as well. And the Orthodoxy is very, very good at talking about how important the mother is. So is Catholicism, to be fair. That's another thing too, is that what I do, you take this very slowly. You just start with a very basic thing and then move up to it. The Lord has your development in mind. And some people will have trouble getting started on this thing. Look at my video that says, I don't have time to pray, ? Which is in the, and that will go through to you what its demons actually try to stop you. Your demons try to stop you from getting started in this. And and the thinking in that helps you stop making excuses and begin. And so what I do, and don't be too willful to get to this or anything, but really throughout the day, it's 3 times I'm doing this. Like I'll do a morning work session, 4 hours, and then I'll have the lunch break, which ends up being a prayer break. And these are the best times of my day in life, doing this stuff now. Incredible. But in the afternoon, whenever your walk is, it would be helpful to go to walk briefly to where a holy ground is, where a church is, and do a quick prayer there. And that's what I do at the end of the day. But what is really great about that is that as things develop, you'll find that the miraculous starts to occur far more. And so if you're praying outside and doing all your concentration outside and attending the belly and doing the Jesus prayer, and you do your concentration without effort there as while you're praying, you'll find miracles of coincidence occur. And if you're outside, you can feel in solitude. But you begin to care much less about solitude as things go on, is that you don't care if people see you doing what you're doing. But things coincide with the wind and coincide with prayers that you're making. And so, again, much more above chance. We're not, I know the cognitive biases. It's obvious. It's just, it becomes exceedingly, unquestionably obvious how this occurs. Like, unquestionably obvious, the things that occur. But miracles occur in relation to what you're experiencing and what you're doing in your prayers. And if you're inside, you can hear the birds chirping. But yeah, birds are important to notice birds. The Lord speaks through birds a lot. Again, coinciding with your inner experience as one sense, really. Because as we'll talk about next week, the epistemic principle is quite very cautious, which means truth, criterion for truth, to confirm something, confirm communication, to know that it's not from the Lord. So we'll talk about that next week. But point is, being outside is helpful because the weather and birds are something that the Lord uses a lot, or his angels use a lot. When the ancients talked about the language of birds being the language of angels being the language of birds, they were talking about it for a reason. It's not just symbolic. So not all the time, but sometimes. So even walking around, just allow the birds now to enter your attention. Notice them when you're walking around. But yeah, that's not really a practice we're talking about, but it is something you should be aware of. Helps to visit holy ground once a day to do that prayer. If it's in solitude and outside, that's a bonus to do a prayer there. And again, if you drift away, that's okay. Just bring a gentle, neutral no to the distraction and a return to the attending of the belly and to prayer. And I think I've talked about everything that I've got listed there. Yep. Practice and grace grows as you progress. You end up practicing every morning. Grace grows as you progress. That's very true. You'll notice that. We'll talk a bit more about that later, but we're not going to go too much into the phenomenology today. We'll talk about that next week. the mystery of the old breath. That's everything. We've talked about everything.